missed this. I'm smacking my vein here. I've been in complete. I've had the DTs. I love doing this so much. 5 days, I think, since I did one of these. My God, can you guys hear me all right? We hearing Cliff? Say, hey, we can hear Cliff. Hey, I hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, hit that like button, Debbie. You are correct. I just need the word for we hear you. Ad played first. Okay. We can hear you. That's all I needed. It was one quick word from you. All right. Let's get to business. We're going to have Tony on in a little bit. We're going to have John Fugelsang joining us. But I wanted to start off with the Hunter Biden pardon. Yes, folks, I know. Let's lay a wreath at the foot of the forgotten soldier, the unknown soldier, forgotten soldier, the unknown soldier. And let's be very somber and maybe hold a march in the streets. There's been a pardon of Hunter Biden. Pardoned for paying his taxes late and not filling out a gun form correctly. And I know if you all know anything, you know the fact that to Republicans, not filling out a gun form correctly and, and not paying your taxes are two things they absolutely hate. I mean, those are their two leading issues, regulating guns and raising taxes. So clearly it wasn't a partisan witch hunt, a term Trump likes to use so often. There's a witch hunt. When there's 47,226 different felonies they're going after you for, that's a witch hunt. When it's your name is Hunter Biden and you get treated differently than everybody else in every other situation, there's a zealous prosecution against you. They throw a deal aside on not filling out a gun form correctly. Listen, I wish we had tougher laws on that. We don't do that. We don't prosecute anybody on that. And paying your taxes late, that's like half this country. But of course, Joe Biden's terrible. Joe Biden's awful. It's always the same people too. The weak-ass Democrats and, some of these never Trump types. I like some of them, but some of them just can never seem to get over that reflexive reaction. How are we going to run on the rule of law now? We're not. We ran on the rule of law and we didn't win because people don't care. We're going to run on pointing out every time they mention a word like trans or they mention a word like immigrant, we're going to point out the billionaire is sitting in secretive rooms with really below floor EQs, like jumping up in the air like this, like Elon Musk control their party. That's how we're going to beat them. We're going to play their game and we're going to control messaging and narrative. But right now we're worried about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden everywhere. Does this not remind you all of the campaign? When one issue it would be Joe Biden's age. Donald Trump would be out there like knocking off banks, right? He'd be going in and robbing banks like in old president masks, like he was in Point Break or something. Nope, okay. He'd be showing up, to rooms, to brothels full of underage women, allegedly. And no problem. That's okay. Let's talk about Joe Biden's age. And now, look at what we're looking at. We've got Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel as two of the nominees. Now, are they likely going to get through? Probably not. But you know why they're likely not going to get through? Because they're an effing wreck. They're unqualified. They're insane people. They're sociopaths. They're losers. Who should we start with? Kash sitting there in his Crocodile Dundee outfit. He's all leathered up, urban cowboy with the 6, 12, 18 pairs of socks lowered in his junk and a picture coming from below him. I didn't need to see that. Nobody needs to see that. Or should we talk about how when you look at him, if crack cocaine were eyes, that would be his eyes. I mean, if you took crack cocaine and you were able to form retinas out of it, you would get Kash Patel's retinas. He's a lunatic. He also helped Trump with January 6th. You had numerous things. Barr said that if Kash Patel were appointed as his deputy, that he would not allow it over his dead body. Gina Haspel at CIA said if he were appointed there as her deputy, because Trump kept trying to do this, she would resign. He ended up at defense, of course, to try to help on January 6th. He's an absolute butt-kissing scumbag with no knowledge of anything and crack cocaine eyes. I think we've established that. And he has an enemies list. So maybe talking about his enemies list is more important for a guy who could theoretically be FBI director, a long list of enemies, Republicans and Democrats. Maybe we should talk about that over, Biden pardoning his son for stuff that nobody ever goes to prison for. Crazy. Then there's good old Pete Hegseth. What do you want to talk about? The Aryan tattoo, the fact that he's such an extremist, they wouldn't trust him to guard inauguration when President Biden was being inaugurated. The fact that he doesn't think women can serve in combat. A lot of those women could beat the living crap out of that wimp. The fact that he's got more fecal matter in his hands that exists in Donald Trump's diaper. The not washing your hands thing. I don't know. Can Trump wash his diapers? I mean, his goofy haircut, the fact that he lies about everything when he went on Fox News to its viewers on issues, or let's call it issues around health and shots, because there's certain things I can't say on this channel. Or should we just talk about the fact that when he was at Concerned Veterans, or it was a Concerned Vets for America, that they said he was basically drunk on the job all the time, harassing the women, and there was financial impropriety. They had to carry him out of the place a couple times because he was so loaded. So what do we do? We bring top shelf liquor to the hearings? When they have hearings for him, do they need to bring tequila, or in his case, maybe more grain alcohol, just to get him to show up? And finally, there's the fact that his own mom thinks that he's the scum of the earth. She's now, walking it back like Ivanka, or Ivana walked back the accusations of rape against Donald Trump when they were married, because this always happens later on. But I'll just read you that, because remember, it's more important that we go after that Hunter Biden become a big issue than this. This is what his mom sent to him. Quote, "You are an abuser of women. That is the ugly truth, and I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man and have been for years, and as your mother, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that, but the sad, sad truth. I am not a saint, far from it, so don't throw that in my face." Clearly, he also is verbally abusive to his mom. You can tell right from that. But your abuse over the years to women, dishonesty, sleeping around, betrayal, debasing, belittling, that's all the things that the New Testament recommends you do, I believe. That's why the Christians love them. Need to be called out. It's time for someone, I wish it was a strong man, to stand up to your abusive behavior and call it out, especially against women. So she wanted a strong man to come along and beat the crap out of her son, because that's the kind of a-hole he is. Now I'm going to let another strong man in here, an Ozarkian, Polarkian, I think could have kicked either Hegseth's butt through a wall if his mom had asked Tony to do it. But the fact is, his mom wrote him an email. She said, "You're the scum of the earth. You're horrible. You treat women terribly. I don't really like you very much. Oh, and by the way, I wish a man would come and kick your ass." That's a hell of an endorsement.
It is pretty good.
Is it good? And I read about Kash Patel before with, my feeling is, if you were to convert crack cocaine into eyes, that would be Kash Patel's eyes. Not to mention his enemies list. I mean, we're not talking about these two people. And yes, granted, you and I know that there's almost definitively they're not going to make it.
I would say there's at least 4 or 5 Republican senators that are not going to vote for them. Yes.
No, I would say there's no planet on which Lisa Murkowski does, and then you start with a few of the other ones. I think what I said about Matt Gaetz holds true with Kash Patel definitively. Is he has an enemies list. He's going to come after McConnell. McConnell is not. You could say a lot of things about McConnell, when I've said many, but he's not stupid. He's a turtle. He's annoying as hell. He's a traitor. He looks like a 112-year-old grandma. He actually looks
I don't think the signal's coming in anymore all the way, because he glitches every once in a while.
Yes, he glitches here and there. But one thing, he is a smart. He's been, and to our detriment, a very smart tactician, a smart strategist. And so the fact of the matter is like, he knows that he's got a power base and Trump's coming for him.
Well, the other thing too that we always forget, right? And this is something that well, but most audience members don't pick up on this, because us as commentators don't talk about this, is that Mitch McConnell has been in the United States Senate for quite some time, and he's been in Congress for longer than that. And Mitch McConnell actually has a very, very powerful staff. A lot of people don't understand that on the Hill in D.C., that your staff matters. It matters. And
they actually do. My wife worked for the you have to go way back, but the Democratic Minority Leader, Dick Gebhardt in the early 2000s. So Like the staff does so much more than you could ever realize.
Right.
It is
And they have a
amazing.
lot, and they have a lot of power. And the reason why they have a lot of power is because they stand behind the senator, right? They're the ones that are making the senator who the senator is and what the public knows about the senator. Sometimes the public doesn't know nothing about the senator, and the reason why is because their staff doesn't want the public to know, or their staff is not very good at PR. They're just good at getting elected in their state, right? So you have to understand that John Thune, the reason why John Thune is the majority leader now isn't just because John Thune's a cigar buddies with Mitch McConnell. It's because their staffs get along. Their staffs are, and it's likely that a lot of
bills together, they negotiate bills together,
and they do that all through the staff. They do that all through the staff, and to our chagrin, we don't like this, but the staffs do a lot of this negotiating and a lot of this stuff in DC restaurants and DC food booths over a meal or over drinks. And that's where a lot of this politicking happens.
Right there on 16th Street or so is where a lot of that, you go there. I wanted to point out Paul Young here, but McConnell and I are alumni of the same high school. I'm going to make you feel better, Paul, because I went to a college called the University of Pennsylvania, and Elon Musk and Donald Trump went there, and I've now rendered my degree completely meaningless. I literally might as well just let Pete Hegseth wipe his hands on it, because that's about what it's worth at this point.
But I mean, to your point though, is that there's more than just powerful senators that are standing in the way of Matt Gaetz, of the Pete Hegseths, the Kash Patels getting the reins of power. It's the entirety of Capitol Hill. And that's really what Trump and Kash Patel and all these people are calling the deep state, is that these are human beings that their entire livelihood, their entire lives are governing. And I know that we want to demonize the staff of Mitch McConnell because of some of the really awful stuff that they put forward that Mitch McConnell has backed. But I want to tell you that there's just as many people on the Democratic side. And it used to be that those Democratic staff and the Republican staff, they hang out together. They have common interests together. That's where there would be reaching across.
I'll be honest with you, that was a much better time.
Right.
And you could even find some examples of that 15 to 20 years ago, where you still had the last vestiges of some of the more moderate Republicans. You know, again, I'm not saying I agreed with them, but they were reasonable people. Olympia Snowe or Arlen Specter or people like that, you know, that were still there. And those staffs often, I mean, there were some times where people actually, and this would be, of course, unheard of today, but I knew people that worked for staffs on both sides, the Republican and the Democratic, because if you found people that were, the Democratic Party wasn't as left, you had some pro-gun, anti-choice, you know, kind of Democrats. If you found people that overlapped on some things, and you could do that, it wasn't as separated as today, it didn't matter. You could work on either side, and you could get away with that. But you're right about staff, but I'm saying right now, and that is a big part of it, but I'm also saying that, you know, Mitch McConnell likely, and if he's not cognitively there, his wife, you know, Elaine Chao, fearing for their safety, are not going to let Kash Patel anywhere near a guy with an actual written out enemies list.
Wasn't Elaine Chao, wasn't Mitch McConnell's wife, because she was Secretary of Transportation, wasn't she the very first cabinet member who resigned after the insurrection? She was the very first one.
2 or 3 that resigned, and she was the first one. And then for that, he called her Coco Chow and all sorts of other racist comments that he purposely tried to make about her. She's got huge Chinese government connections, so that's the question of whether that, you know, her dad was in with all of those guys, went to college with them, the whole deal. So the question is whether they would do something to McConnell, or that might be an act of war, because that's where we are now, is that we have other countries' spies and nationals serving in our the highest levels of our government.
Well, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, a supposed Russian agent, is going to be the head of national intelligence.
Yeah, so she's another one that's not going anywhere. But the point here isn't this. The point here, again, you were going to talk about, you know, Pod Kill America.
Well, that's what I was. Well, I was doing a segue with staff, but go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, and that's my segue. You know, the same idea, which is those guys a couple of the wimpier never Trumpers. Some of the never Trumpers I like. Some of the other ones just seem to reflexively want to attack Democrats or go back to their old ways. Certain other, of course, the far left jackasses out there that are using it for political reasons, whatever. Some of the same usual suspects who come out and are, oh my God, Hunter Biden, oh my God. He filled out a gun form incorrectly and he didn't pay his taxes on time. Something that the taxes part, probably more than half of America has done before. And the gun one is when literally the Republican Party has done everything in their power to make sure that you can not fill a form out at all and go get a weapon of war and everything's fine. So, it's ridiculous. The entire reasoning, it was an overzealous prosecution. Nobody else ever gets that kind of time, that kind of sentence for what he did. And, look, you can agree or disagree on the merits with what Joe Biden did. He did something for his son. And you can say that that's wrong. Billy Carter did it for his brother.
That's right. Bill Clinton did it for his stepbrother or whatever.
George H.W. Bush did it for his son. Neil, was in all that SNL garbage, savings and loans when they all went belly up. So I mean, the fact is that it's not something that others haven't done. And Biden isn't perfect. And I've criticized aspects of Joe Biden's, even though I can disclose, I worked for him in 2020, wrote ads on the campaign. Okay, we're out of that disclosure, but I haven't worked for him since. I criticized him at times or whatever. What he was up against, which was essentially an insurrection from the very beginning of his presidency, literally before he was even in office. He was pretty damn good performance overall. And that's the context and the kinds of things that the press can't seem to cover. The pod save types can't seem to cover. It's like you got these two extremes in the Democratic Party. It feels to me like the Mansionites, and the Bernieites on each end. And they each just love attacking the main sort of, like moderate to leftist part of the party. It's either the far left or the center right, it almost feels like, is always. And it's just, it's tiring. And these people are tiring because when you're dealing with Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel, and again, I'm just going to keep saying this, he has an enemies list. He has a list of people that if he gets into office, he intends to go after. One of them is a sitting U.S. senator. Well, not yet. Adam Schiff. He will be. I mean, numerous other folks.
Well, and here's the thing is like any senator sitting around going, well, I'm a Republican senator, but if you're going after, there's only 50 senators. There's only 50 of them. So if you're going to go after one, you might want to go after another. And before, we get it over with, you're going to come after me. But back to Pod Lost America.
Let me let you do that. I just feel it's important. I think I've been clear, but my distinction here is that, again, just like so many other times when we just seem like if you were to step outside and be an alien watching us, you'd be like, these people are insane. We are spending our time on this utterly stupid, nonsensical issue when we're staring in the face of people who've been appointed to positions, even if they're likely not going to make it, who literally will get their playbook from Stalin. But we're not talking. We really need to talk about Joe Biden's son.
Well, here's the thing. There's nothing.
I think that's all because they all saw his penis and they're all jealous. That's what I think it is.
I guess, yeah. Hunter's hog is huge. But here's the thing: is that maybe if Trump were to appoint Hunter Biden as the DOD, because there's really nothing that Hunter Biden hasn't done that Pete Hegseth, hasn't done to an extreme or more of an extreme than Hunter Biden did. But here's the thing.
Oh, that's not fair. Come on.
Well, hey, listen. This is the thing. This is the thing is that it is okay for us to sit here and criticize Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden wasn't the president of the United States.
I'll criticize Hunter Biden all day long.
Hunter Biden is a private citizen, and that's the point here.
He didn't assault any women. You can criticize him all day long.
Well,
I will. Financial impropriety, yes. Addiction, yes. He had. I'm just saying we have. What I'm trying
to say is that MAGA would be okay if Hunter Biden was a Trump supporter and Hunter Biden was appointed to his cabinet. They would love him. They would fawn over him. They would say all the allegations against him are untrue. They might actually say he hasn't done enough. That's the right. That's the likeness.
Tulsi's problem. She doesn't. Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
And that's the through line that I'm trying to get to with comparing those two. And it is
you, so I apologize.
It is okay also for us to sit here and say that we knew that Joe Biden was lying about pardoning Hunter Biden. It is okay to say that. He was. We knew he was going to pardon him. There was no way Joe Biden was not going to pardon him. I do not believe any time that Joe Biden looked into a camera and said he wasn't going to pardon Hunter Biden, he was not telling us a lie. He 100%
so now
was
I feel
going
like
to.
a fool because I'm not arguing with you. I'll admit I'm foolish. I actually thought just because of Democrats always sticking to, we have to be above this, we have to do things the right way, we have to keep the norms that, by the way, don't exist anymore. We have to, whatever. I actually didn't think he was going to pardon him. And maybe that makes me a fool just because I thought he was going to exit, following those norms and procedures instead of doing the things Republicans.
I actually don't think that's Joe Biden as much as we think. I think Joe Biden is more of a political mind and a political operative than we've ever given him credit for.
Maybe.
I mean, and I think Joe Biden was playing politics the entire time, and he had to play politics. And I think he probably owed it to Hunter Biden to pardon him because Joe Biden was kind of playing politics with Hunter's life because, like you said, Joe Biden could have pardoned Hunter Biden that first year he was in office, got it over with, got it done, and moved on past the nonsense. But Joe Biden didn't want to appear to be any kind of bias in the justice system at the time of this turmoil. So he took he used it as a political tool, as I'm the good guy, right? I'm the good guy.
Yeah.
And he used it. Joe Biden is a politician. And he's a masterful politician, if we want to say it. The guy is, he's like 400 years old, and the guy is still managing to be president. Okay. He was going to run for president.
When he walks in, do you remember when like Yoda would walk in the room with a cane and he'd suddenly start flipping off the walls and stuff?
Right.
I feel like that's Biden. He walks around like that, but if he gets in a private room where nobody's looking, I just have this feeling that he's using force energy.
Right. But I think
that was a dumb point. Go ahead.
But I think us on the left, we don't give enough credit to our politicians being politicians, because they really are. They're politicians. Joe Biden is a career politician. This
absolutely.
guy came in the office. He was sworn in office. He's standing in a hospital room after his family was killed.
He was the youngest ever.
Yeah, in a car.
27, 28. He was about to turn 28, and that
right.
I think that's or whatever it was, or is that right? Or 30? No. Yeah, he was about to turn 30. That's the age that you have to be to be a senator. I think he was 29, but he was turning 30 that year. And no, let me say something, because he's always been a politician. You need to remember, if you've been around long enough, and some youngins like Tony, some of those Ozarkians are a little bit younger and they don't know. But, in 1988, when he ran, he got busted for plagiarism.
Lying.
That's a pretty political thing to do. Right?
What is plagiarism besides his lying, right?
Right.
It's deception. So again, it's deception.
I'm not saying actually that Democrats don't. It's more of the culture of the Democratic Party, which is breaking apart now.
Right.
I'm not saying Joe Biden wasn't a politician. I'm saying Democrats, even ones that are politicians and would like to do this, always think, I can't do that because that would break a norm. All those times when they brought up the debt ceiling and used it to literally threaten not just Democrats, but the world economy. It doesn't exist in the Constitution. Democrats had multiple options, which was to say, this is a stupid accident of history, doesn't exist in the Constitution. We're not playing this game. This is our debt, past debt. We're just paying it because that's what countries do. Or Biden, or I remember with Obama, people said he could have just had $1 trillion coin minted, and then here you go. And that's exactly what the Republicans would have done. But we would never do that kind of stuff. And my guess is Obama being a bit cheeky like he is, which is why I like him. Because he's got a good sense, he's got a little bit of a sense of, what am I looking for? It's not evil, mischievousness. I think he probably wanted to do it, but the culture of Democratic Party is like, you don't do that. And I think with the filibuster, same deal. Doesn't exist in the Constitution. Literally, I think somebody could just be standing up and be like, we're not following this procedure. This is stupid. It's illegal and shouldn't exist. But Democrats don't do that. It's Republicans who say, we're going to hold back your nominee for a year because that's based on precedent. It wasn't. And that's the kind of shit they do. So that's all I would say.
Maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's the reason why we lose,
It
is that we are not
Yes.
willing to be politicians. That that the left, the base of the left, is so offended when Joe Biden would tell such a obvious untruth that of course he's going to pardon his son. He's not going to let his son go to prison for stupid things that no one goes to prison for when he's the only one with the power to do that. He wasn't going to ever do that.
No.
Even if he would have won. Even if he would have ran and won, okay? If Joe Biden would, because I actually believe Joe Biden would have beat Donald Trump at this point. But that's just my personal opinion.
I don't think so either. He would have. I don't think he would have just because I've seen.
Sure.
They could have recovered. The numbers were really bad after that. Again,
I think there was a lot of things. I would think there's a lot of things that Donald Trump did because Kamala Harris became the candidate that made him win that he wouldn't have done otherwise with Joe Biden. He would have golfed more and not worked as hard.
It's definitely possible. Right. I don't know.
I think they turned a page when they decided a woman was against them, that it would make it easier to go talk to men and convince men to vote for for Donald Trump.
Probably affected strategy, absolutely. Right. Especially, let's be honest, especially a minority woman.
Right. Right. Exactly. So I'm saying that my personal opinion, now it would have been just as narrow of a race, right? Joe Biden would have beat Donald Trump with the same narrow margin that Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris with. That's my belief.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But here's the thing is that Joe Biden, if he would have won, he would still be pardoning Hunter Biden right now. He would still be pardoning Hunter Biden. He would not let him go to prison. There's no way that you could convince me that Joe Biden is going to let his son, as the president of the United States, go to prison for marking a wrong form or not paying his taxes on time. That's really stupid. I believe Joe Biden would have 100% pardoned him even if he would have won. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Why is Pod Lost America talking about this? The reason why is because they're mad. They're mad that they didn't get their candidate back in 2020. They're mad that they were always Obama bros, and Biden was never there. Speaking of staffers, right? Speaking of very powerful staffers who rub elbows with very powerful people, that is who these people are. And again, I said it on the show earlier. I think it was John on Pod Lost America. The last week, their last episode before Thanksgiving, it's someone sent I didn't listen to it because I don't listen to that stuff. But because I can listen to clips of it and know that I don't need to go listen to it. But here's the thing. Is that John? If I'm having trouble sleeping, I've got perfectly good pills to take. I don't need to listen to that. Exactly. John catered his Thanksgiving dinner, and he bragged about it on their podcast that he catered their things. And this is why the working class doesn't listen to Pod Lost America and doesn't want to listen to anything they say. They don't want to listen to people who can cater their Thanksgiving dinner because they struggle to go buy a turkey and make sure the turkey ain't dry. I mean, they can't hire a 5-star chef to cater their Thanksgiving dinner for their family. And that's the difference, is those guys are so tone deaf that they don't even know when they say that stuff out loud that their audience thinks about that. They don't even know. No, I think it's like on your show when you were showing, young Sisson, whatever his name is, sitting there eating pie. Harry. Just the whole look of that was the look of like, I was starting to think about it afterwards, right? I'm starting to think of what that look is of like an upper crust, like stereotype in a movie, like the two guys from Trading Places. You know what I mean? Like sitting there like, hello, Mortimer. Would you like some pie? Yes, it didn't even look like he liked the pie. It didn't even look like he's like, ooh, this is a store-bought pie. I don't like store-bought. I don't even understand what that imagery was supposed to convey. Like, I don't get it. I think Harry rushed to make a video because someone told him to make a video, and that's the video that he made. And that's the thing is, like, we shouldn't, as commentaries, you shouldn't rush the commentary. What are we doing, man? You and I, we're like giving real analysis. From now, I'm just going to be like, hey, everybody, what they just did is hypocritical. All right? They went after Hunter Biden, and they went after him for taxes. And we know they don't like taxes. So they're hypocrites. Thank you. Man, you type that out on Twitter, that'd be a banger. I mean, if I were just like, let's say, the right person who had bought 400,000 followers, it would be amazing. All the likes I would get. Yeah, absolutely.
It can make me feel good about myself all night. Cause let's say I had nothing else to feel good about.
Sure. Well, and I guess that's the point is that what the Democratic Party needs to do. And really it's liberals in general, because we need to start separating the party from the actual base, because people who vote for Democrats aren't necessarily Democrat. I'm not a card carrying Democrat. I don't register as a Democrat. I don't have to register in Missouri, so I don't.
You don't have to in Missouri?
No,
yeah, we have
no.
to do that here. Although you can vote in the other party's primary, but you do have to. I have to
pull. Now I have to pull. Like during a primary, I can pull a Republican ticket when I go in, and then I can vote. Right. For a Democrat on the.
I asked them. In other words, I have to show them my stuff and then show them what my registration is. But then I'm allowed to say I would rather vote in the Republican primary and grab the Republican primary stuff and go do that.
Right.
So I am allowed to do that.
So it is open to a degree. It's not a closed primaries process. Ours is completely open. But here's the thing: is that normies out there don't normally say, "Yeah, I'm a card-carrying Republican. I'm a card-carrying." They say, "I vote Democrat. I vote Republican. I don't like them." Most people don't like Republicans or Democrats. They don't like them, and the reason why is because they're politicians, and most
politicians at all.
Most people know that politicians lie, and that's.
Let me give you an example of this. Mm-hmm. So online, whatever you think, and I think AOC is a terrific communicator. I do not agree with her on some things. On some issues, she's to my left, and I think she's made some big mistakes early on. I think as time has gone on, I've liked her more and more, and feel like she's been trying to be part of the solution instead of just sort of yelling at the party from the outside, and realized she's a congresswoman now. She's no longer an activist,
right?
And well, she put something out on Twitter, and again, this isn't a scientific thing, and this was about 2 weeks ago, but asking if there were people that voted for her and Trump, and all these people responded. And it basically all came down to, and as somebody who worked in polling and messaging for, that came from working in polling firms for years, I can't tell you how long I've seen the same thing, right? So this isn't something new. It's gotten worse, but it's not something new. And it was all because you both don't seem like real politicians. You both talk, say what you think. I mean, there was an actual cohort, and I want to say it's like 10 or 15% of people that voted for AOC and voted for Trump. And this is where like the traditional, pundit prognosticators, all of these folks who don't take their heads out of their rears or ever leave the coasts, have any idea what's really going on, is they don't get that it's about identity. How you feel you identify with someone, issues are part of that identity, but they are far from most of it. And so the truth is, if there's somebody who feels like, I hate fake politicians, AOC screams and yells and shows up to protest, Donald Trump tells people to F off, I like both of them. That's who I'm going to go with. That there are people, which is one of the reasons, I'll be honest with you, that the one I've been pushing, who I want to get to the head of the Democratic pack, is John Fetterman. Because if there's anybody who does not at all seem like a politician, it is John Fetterman. Mm-hmm. Find another person who's 6'9" with a goatee and an ear
and wears a hoodie in the Senate chamber,
hoodie and shorts to the Senate chamber, talks like a regular person, doesn't give a crap. He tells people to their faces what they don't want to hear. When they show up, and like a bunch of people showed up from the Free Palestine thing saying Israel shouldn't exist, and he's like, I think you're idiots. I don't even want to talk to you, and slam the door in their faces, basically. Like he's who he is, and I think he has that appeal. I would love it if he were.
I think he could make his way to the front too. But here's the thing: is that if we are going to discuss these things in politician terms, we need to also discuss them in media terms, because that's what's happening with our media. It's the reason why the Democratic Party as a party, when you compare the Republican Party and the Democratic Party has the policies and the values of the working class, but the working class don't think that they're for them. And the reason why is because that whole imagery problem. They have an imagery problem. They don't have, They have one John Fetterman. They should have all the John Fettermans, right?
I agree.
That's
but
the
a lot
issue.
Of that also,
and again, it's the media. It's the media that does this. And the reason why is the foam rises to the top in the politicians is because they go to the media that makes them rise to the top, and they reflect the media that they go on. And it's sad to
this is important, even being from your state, and this is why I will throw this your way, dude. I mean, could anybody seem more like a prissy, wimpy, little douche than Josh Hawley? Okay. And yet, I mean, my God, is he pathetic? My God, does he look like he was born with khakis literally stapled on his legs? Like, you never see him outside of his khakis and his shirt, his little kiss to his wife, which shows a lot of love as far as I'm concerned, passion. I mean, he's a fraud too. But the reason they can get away with having so many frauds who are obviously not men of the people or women of the people is because of the control they have over this vast behemoth of media that frames the debate. So it's some of it. What I try to say to people is, when you try to, this is not you. I mean, this is not aimed at you, Tony. It's aimed at other folks who try to find like one thing and say, this is the one reason. And usually I find in what most people are saying, a lot of reasons, like there's a lot of truth in what a lot of people are saying. It's a combination of, yes, we emphasize some of the wrong things. Yes, we're talking about issues that aren't important to most people in certain ways and not fighting back on stuff. Yes, we don't have a big enough media megaphone. Yes, we rely on the stupid mainstream media too much and don't hit them hard enough, to push them towards us the way the right does. Yes, we like rely on norms too much and don't push the envelope. And I can go on and on. I don't need to. Point is that we should have a lot more Fettermans, but he is the kind of guy, and Obama, again, it still, I think, took a crash of the stock market, sadly, to help him win, or the housing market in 2008, when Bush only had a 30% approval rating, but he talked like a normal person, and Bill Clinton talked like a normal person.
Yeah.
In fact,
well, the third
did a lot
way,
of things like
the third way with Bill Clinton.
People.
Yeah.
Clinton did a lot of things normal people did that they could relate to. My point is we've had these folks there and they've gone after them. And as you'll notice, they're the only ones who generally, except for in very blue states, obviously, they're the only ones in swing states or red states who would survive the onslaught of the right-wing Hydra media, right? Doug Jones was such a regular guy. It also helped that, his opponent was calling up 13-year-olds in trig class to ask them out on dates, but you know what?
Do 13-year-olds take trigonometry in Alabama?
He literally called a 13-year-old. I mean, that was in the transcript.
In the trigonometry, there is in Alabama. In Alabama, there are 13-year-olds in trigonometry. Okay, I don't believe that. I mean, I believe that he was calling. I believe he was calling 13-year-old girls, but I don't think there's any.
Remember, this was 20 years ago.
Well, that is true.
Maybe they've defunded the education system. Now they teach trigonometry when you hit 32. Okay, but in any case, like even with that, even with this guy calling up, hey, it was the guy who literally at the mall, the main mall there, people were warning young women that worked there. That's about this.
Yeah, I know this. I know that. I heard the story of the security guard like trying to shuffle him out of the mall.
Yeah. So he's just a Supreme Court judge here. No big deal, or whatever he was at the time. He was a lower court judge. But my point's the same. My point is that if we had one of these preppy Democrats running in Alabama, he still would have won. It's because Doug Jones talked, acted, and was a regular dude that he was even able to win that race.
Can I tell you something else? Can I tell you something else that is also a factor in this? Is that like Trump's not an average dude, right? He's not a normie by any stretch of the imagination. And the thing is that Josh Hawley's not a normie either. But what they do and what people want them to do is people know politicians are fake and they're pretending. They want them to pretend the certain way that they want them to pretend. Josh Hawley pretends to be straight. He pretends to be manly. Donald Trump pretends to be able to know how to fry French fries and know how to get into a garbage truck. Okay. They pretend the correct way that they want them to pretend. It's not always about authenticity. Sometimes it's about just pure show me what I want. Show me show me how you will cater to me. Right. Now, I believe that Fetterman, he did pretend a little bit when he first got to the Senate. Remember when he wore the suit? He looked awkward. Yeah.
I says 1971. Thank you for the $9.99 super sticker. Please, folks, super stickers, super chats, memberships. That's how we survive here. Go ahead. Sorry, dude.
But John Fetterman's seen very out of place in a suit in the Senate at the first
Yes,
several months. Because he's so authentic that he looked pretending, and everyone in Pennsylvania is like, take that suit off and put your hoodie on. We want you to pretend to be you, right? Like, even if because he had to kind of pretend a little bit, and he kind of has to pretend to be him with the hoodie and stuff, and he kind of has to overdo it a little bit because that's what the people of Pennsylvania want. That's who they voted for, right? So these things are not set in stone, and these things are fluid, right? And the problem that the left has is that we're always standing around trying to figure out who to cancel next on the left, right? Who's next? Who are we going to go after next? Who's going to be MAGA, right? Who's not woke enough kind of stuff. Like, come on, man. If we can stop doing that nonsense, right? And we can get with the correct brand. That's right. Well, we can get the correct brand and move on with that brand, then we'll be in better shape.
So, for example, I can say to people right now, and I'm not gonna. It's not a time for specifics yet, but there's one really douchey guy on the Democratic side who's decided to target me and try to mess with. He's tried to defame me and mess with people who would want to subscribe to my YouTube and would want to follow me on Blue Sky. I'm not saying anything yet because I'm trying to handle this peacefully because I don't think it's helpful when Democrats fight each other.
Wait, you don't want a war? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying to you is if people know me and know who I am and how I react to these things, is that I will tell all of you, and you can all join in if you'd like, because if he doesn't, let's just say I've sent some intermediaries, and if he doesn't get through his head by the end of this week, there will be a war, and I will destroy him. And if you're seeing this, you should know that I'm coming. So let's not get into the names yet because he has a chance to back off.
Yeah.
But I see people asking in the comments. I'm not trying to be a jerk, guys. I know you want to know. But I will. If the guy doesn't back off by the end of the week, I will tell you. I'll tell my 3 million member email list. I'm sure he's going to love that.
Oh shit!
Oh yeah.
That would suck.
I'll tell my just about 100,000 subscribers at YouTube. He's going to be unhappy, and that's the thing. I bring this up because I'd like to kick him where what's his name keeps his socks, Kash Patel. But I also tell you because it's petty little people like this that make it so we have infighting. And here I am, this guy's already come after me. And my temperament when somebody comes after me is to destroy them. And I'm still trying to not do it because I want what's better for all of us. I'm still trying to make this go away peacefully. But they're just these people. So what I'm saying to you is don't call somebody out and say you're done because they disagree with you on one thing. This happened on Twitter the other day. The person was agreeing with me when I was disagreeing with somebody else. And they said, well, about the other person, we don't need to listen to you anymore. Get out of here. And we were disagreeing on the Hunter Biden pardon. And I was like, no, we can't do that. Yes, there's some fundamental things that we all agree upon. Women have right to control their bodies. We all have a right to love who we're going to love. If you're not for universal background checks on guns, I'm sorry, you're an idiot. I don't want anything to do with you. I mean, there's some very basic things we agree on. To me, everything else, we should be able to have conversations about. And you can disagree on Hunter Biden's the pardon without saying, all right, you're canceled. And that's what I said to this person who was on my side. Respectfully, I'm like, don't tell this other ally of ours to get lost. They may be an ally in a future battle. We should all be trying to get along. And so, because that, look, go back and read Levinsky and Zyblatt, I'm probably mispronouncing their name, how democracies die, which I read after Trump won the first time. And it's pretty simple. The way you defeat authoritarianism, whether it's of the Stalin-esque variety on the far left or the Hitler-esque variety on the far right, is everybody else has to unite against them. So the more people you bring in, even if it's people you don't like how they talk, you don't like what they say, you don't eat at the same kinds of restaurants, you don't drink the same kind of beer, it doesn't matter. You should bring people in. Add people. And as I told you, again, with my temperament, I would have done 3 days ago, I would have ripped this guy into 4 pieces. And I still haven't done it because I actually care about all of us moving forward together. Now, At some point, I have to protect my livelihood and my name. And if he doesn't get that, he's going to be sorry. But I hope he does get it, because I'll let it go at this point, because it's better that we all try to kind of work together. That's the way I see it.
Boom. I stayed way more than my 5 minutes, but I appreciate the conversation. And
of course.
So I'm going to head out of here.
Have you, man.
Yeah, I'm going to head out of here. And
yeah, I think Fugelsang should be getting here around now. I'll have to go hit him up and make sure.
Oh, that's right. You've got John coming on. I look forward to catching the conversation if you guys are gonna, because again, I always appreciate John's takes on religion. He knows so much about it. He really
does. He's such a smart guy that
I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist, and I was raised in the Catholic Church. That's probably why I'm such an atheist. Catholics make really good atheists, I think.
And look, there he is.
Is he? Yeah,
he had glasses on. I'll add him to the stage quickly to overlap with you as you're on the way out. Is that Mr.
John
Fugelsang?
Good morning, gentlemen. Good afternoon. Good evening. Thank you for letting me drag your show down to my level. Hi.
You are certainly heightening it. We were just talking about religion.
Yeah, John, this show already is below Elon Musk's EQ.
Yeah,
okay,
it's got me on.
So it can't get any lower. All right, it's not getting lower.
No, I was just talking about how I was raised Catholic, and Catholics make really good atheists. That's why I'm an atheist. But I always appreciate your takes on religion. So I hope you have a good conversation here, and maybe it gets into that realm of your expertise.
Okay, some of the best Christians I know are atheists, and you don't need to believe in the Bible as literal fact to use it against these fascists and frauds and flock fleecing Pharisees. So
there you go. See, John Fugelsang, he's here. I got to go now because he's definitely going to upstage me with this.
The alliteration is beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I love it. Well, you fellas have fun. You fellas have fun. I'm going to get out of here. We'll see you, Cliff. Right. See you, John.
See ya.
So how you doing, John? I literally was typing out quickly to post on these post-like places because there's like 47 of them now.
You mean social media platforms? You mean for liberal refugee camps?
Exactly. Liberal. Exactly. Let's see. I found you on Blue Sky. Cool.
That's it. It's like all the liberal social media refugee camps. I found you in the Blue Sky camp.
I know you were in that.
I know my
one.
wife's here somewhere.
I don't know if I can make that joke or not. I guess I can. I'm Jewish. I was like, that was only a worker camp, so that was one of the better ones. I still think that's probably a bad joke, and I apologize, folks. All right, John.
Hi,
so let's talk about why you're one of my favorite people in this business.
Oh Lord.
Dude, you're a good dude, and you have done well for yourself, and you still. We'll be honest for a second. There are a lot of people who in show business, which you've been in politics, in music. Do you play music too?
Not well.
Okay, fair. I thought I didn't know, and whatever. And these industries where a lot of people start believing their own press and thinking they're better than everybody else, and are unkind people. And you, from the moment I met you personally, have just been the nicest guy in the world. So I mean, you are legitimately who you are on screen, off screen, and I can't say that about everybody.
Well, thank you. That's all just part of me being a charming sociopath, Cliff. I promise.
Well, it's true. Good sociopaths have to be charming. I mean, they have to fool people like me. And so now you can invite me over for dinner, and then I'll find out I'm dinner. But I won't know it until you actually have done that. So that's good.
We were so thrilled to have you join us on stage at the Big Sexy Liberal Tour this last year. It was really a delight to get you to come on and play with us.
Yeah, you don't know what an itch that you guys scratched there, because I think I may have told you I went through. I got out of grad school and went through a period of which I find myself in lately too, of a little bit burnt out on politics. It doesn't mean I'm staying for the fight. Don't worry, buddy.
It's okay, you're allowed, yeah.
But I'd gone through, and I was like, I was a writer, right? I'd written speeches even for some government officials. I wrote, I'd written columns and whatever. And I was like, but I always would inject some humor into it because I can't be serious for too long. And I swear I had some friends who were just like, just move out to LA, become a comedy writer. Just forget all this stuff. Don't move to DC. I was living in New York City at the time. That's where I went to grad school. Like, don't move to DC, move to, and of course, if anybody knows Jewish mothers, I probably would have gotten my butt kicked for doing that. So I ended up going that path. So at least when I started this stuff and some of the other podcasts I've done and my writing at the Daily Beast, who allowed me to have some fun with some humor, although I wouldn't recommend the Daily Beast these days. It's now become basically TMZ light, but it used to be when Noah Shackman was over there.
I thought HuffPost was TMZ light, but yeah, I've come to really rely on the Daily Beast as my go-to place for information on breakups of celebrity couples I've never heard of. So I appreciate
exactly.
Yeah,
and of course, associated breast sizes,
of course,
because as we used to call it, the Huffington Post, when they really were building an audience, the Side Boob Gazette is what I believe we called it, because they were all into that to get their people there.
They did branch away. I remember seeing a few articles on Thigh Gap as well. It wasn't just Side Boob, so I have to defend them.
Okay, no, you do. I mean, at least back then we didn't have Kash Patel's junk stuffed with like 12 different pairs of socks, with a picture from below while he was urban cowboyed up. So I don't know.
Back then, side boob didn't refer to men like Kash Patel.
No, that's true. Yeah. That's true. He's just a regular boob. All right. So listen, I want to talk. Let's talk a little bit. I'll say quickly. Thank you, Sheldon Hughes, for the super chat. Very kind of you. Let's talk a little bit about the nominees. Let's talk some politics. Give us some smart takes. You think he really thinks folks like Kash Patel and Peter Hegseth are going to be actually confirmed?
No.
Are we putting these people up? Okay, then I don't need to even ask any further. I'm just going to kick it to you. Go for it.
I mean, those people, look, there's this famous story that when Martin Scorsese was making the film Casino, very underrated movie, as 3-hour Scorsese crime films go.
Yeah.
There's the scene where Joe Pesci throws a guy's head in a vice and tightens the vice until the man's eyeball pops out. And when it came time to go before the ratings board, the head in a vice eyeball scene was a major point of contention. And it threatened to get the movie an NC-17 rating. And Scorsese kept fighting them on it. And he kept that one shot in and kept going back time and time again to fight, to keep for his one head in a vice with the eyeball popping out shot from the movie. So in the end,
yes,
when Scorsese finally gave in and let them cut out that one shot, all the other 3 hours of violence and brutal language were all safely included in the film because that one shot had drawn all the fire away. So Donald Trump
I think I see your metaphor here. I think I see where you're headed.
Yeah, he knows he can. He knows it's not going to hurt him in the long run. And he knows that if they go down in flames, the Hegseths, the Gateses, probably the RFKs and the Tulsis and the Cashes, they are there to distract from the petrochemical guys, the evil billionaires, the pardoned donor criminals,
the puppy shooter. I mean, we're not even talking about Gravel Pit McGee here.
Yeah.
Who apparently, is going to get away scot-free from a shotgun shell to a puppy's face because
lying about meeting Kim Jong-un in a memoir, lying in a published book about having a meeting with Kim Jong-un, and they're going to make her our face to the UN. So the rest of the world knows day one that they can't believe anything. This government.
And Elise Stefanik, she was repeating the Great Replacement theory.
Yeah,
right
she's
before that gentleman drove up to Buffalo and committed that mass murder of black shoppers in a market.
Yeah. He's not qualified to hold elective office under Section 14. She engaged in insurrection to overthrow the government. She is as unqualified to hold public office as Donald Trump is.
Where do you come down on? Because I agree with you, obviously, 100%. And you just brought up something that I wasn't going to. Oh, thank you for my Gravel Pit McGee. I'm going to be saying that a lot.
I could talk about this DEI cabinet all day.
Well,
by DEI, I mean, dishonest, extremist, and inexperienced. That's this cabinet. But
I think I'm going to make like a chart, X and Y axis, be like committed sexual assault, stole money from their company, shared secrets with the enemy, whatever, and see how many boxes each of them checks.
That's the whole cabinet. It's hacks, quacks, and a sex pest nest. I mean,
Nicely done.
on rape culture alone, you got Elon, you got Trump himself, you got Matt Gaetz, you sure do got Pete Hegseth. Gentlemen, no matter how low you sink in your life,
RFK Jr. too.
if your mother hasn't written you a letter like Pete Hegseth's mother has written, you can still sink lower, gentlemen. There's a lot farther to go. And yeah, all of these, you know, I mean, RFK. We'll hear the rest of them. There'll be more coming out too.
Right, with the babysitter with him. I mean, yeah. Again, I think, as I said, I think the most difficult aspect for Tulsi Gabbard, she may not be able to get on there, is because she hasn't committed sexual assault that we know of. If she would assault somebody right now, I think her chances would go up of the Trump people really getting behind her and supporting her.
And it's going to be interesting. You know, you hear people saying, well, Tulsi was liberal for all these years. Tulsi's not. I don't know how she gets approved. You know, oh, his labor secretary supports the PRO Act. I guarantee you she does not support the PRO Act anymore. I guarantee you these Republican senators will not confirm a labor secretary who has ever supported the PRO Act. Like, all of it just shows that this is
this is what I like, John. Is that you entertain, but you know these kinds of facts. Like, I've tried to, you know, I talk to folks here and I'm like, sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I know it's not what we want in the world, but Mitch McConnell, I kept saying to people, still has institutional power. He's the only power base, I would say, that at this point, maybe the Supreme Court, you could say, is separate from Trump, but I don't even know. You know, independent power base, and that was proven by John Thune, his lieutenant, winning over the MAGA choice, Rick Scott. And I knew that Democrats didn't need to do anything. That's why I kept saying they should get up and march out, like the scene at the end of Animal House, maybe whistling "My Country 'Tis of Thee," you know, from that court proceeding, because they should go sit down, and then when Matt Gaetz is introduced, go outside, have a big picture of his DUI, talk to cameras, and say, this is somebody who's unqualified, is an unserious choice. Yeah, is somebody who's being investigated for serious crimes. We're not going to participate in this because this is a joke. And it didn't even get that far. Right. Before that, he ended up being pulled. But I knew it because Matt Gaetz is a guy that would go after McConnell for Trump. And those guys are not going to let any wild card who they think will do Trump's bidding, considering Trump hates a lot of that McConnell group. So you're going to see Kash Patel is going to have the same problem. They're not letting him through. I think
those the five biggest clowns are going to be the hardest ones to sail through.
And here's another one. When do
and
we
Democrats,
ever,
by the way, Democrats have a moral responsibility to slow this process up and block as much.
Absolutely.
Because these people are all unqualified. This is just a bunch of grifters and criminals having a Berlusconi feeding frenzy on the Treasury. That's all this is.
Exactly right. And again, you know, I mean, the irony is, you know, I kept saying to people, we need to stand up, be clear about RFK Jr., and there's so much out there. But anybody think Big Pharma is going to let the guy who wants to put people that use Adderall in camps and says that we should do no research or no R&D on infectious diseases for 8 years? Okay, I mean, good luck there. They adopt
this former liberal RFK Jr., who, you know, I'll agree with plenty of what he says about the food supply, absolutely. But you think the Department of Deregulation is ever going to approve him? He's there for his last name, and once he does not make it past the confirmation process, just like Tulsi, just like Gaetz, Trump's already repaid them. He tried. Now he can cut them loose and never think about them again.
And the base will love him because he tried, right? The nuts, you know, who went crazy over COVID will be like, oh, you tried to get our guy on there. And then he can just go back. He'll have a lot more time to get in the shower for his wife's ads for her products.
And then the more competent criminals will sail through the process because the media is going to be so distracted by this yard sale.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, that is exactly right. So listen, you brought up before, very important point about insurrectionists not being able to run, which should include Donald Trump, should have included Josh Hawley, should have included Ted Cruz, just to name a couple of them. Where do you come down? Because there's a divide. I think most of us are on one side of it, but there are a few people who defend Merrick Garland's tenure. I am one of the people who believes that he failed us massively. That being, I'll say quickly, that being Attorney General, it's not just some people like, well, he couldn't have brought this case quick enough or that. And I'm like, I'm not a lawyer, but I do PR for a living. And he didn't need to be the one in front of microphones, but somebody needed to be informing the American people when a coup had just been attempted. I'm sorry, norms go to the side at the time. What is going on? How we're taking this forward? Why we're taking Scott Perry's phone, but not doing anything to Scott Perry? Like these were all okay. I'll kick it to you. Go for it. I've
Look,
said this stuff
I
plenty.
see both sides of it. Allison Gill on Mueller, She Wrote has done some really spectacular defenses of Merrick Garland and his tenure, and I respect all that. The fact is that no one thought after January 6th America's standards would be low enough to let this douchebag have the nuclear codes again. We didn't realize that white people would be that shitty. We really thought,
Yes.
okay, white people, you got away with 12 years of trickle down and it blew up in your face. And then you got away with the impeachment of Bill Clinton and it blew up in your face. And Sarah Palin was an idiot and there were no WMDs and Bush and Cheney trashed the global economy.
And
We warned you about all of this. We were right every time. You hated us for being right. We warned you about Trump. We were right about everything. Recession began before COVID. He coasted on Barack Obama's recovery numbers. I say to MAGA people all the time, show me the Barack Obama economic trend that Donald Trump reversed. And rather than just coasted on, black unemployment was cut in half under Obama. Under Trump, the trend continued one more point, and Trump kept eating Big Macs and said, see, I'm not racist.
Right.
So
he created all those black jobs for them, right? I think that's what he did. Yeah.
Joe Biden came in really determined to be a conciliatory government. And he wanted to restore confidence. He wanted to rebuild the culture at the DOJ. So he picks Merrick Garland instead of a more aggressive prosecutor to be the attorney general. And the Biden administration believed that fixing the political culture would heal America. And they were not interested in putting Donald Trump in jail. They never were. Now, I would say that the greatest mistakes in our history are not punishing the bad guys.
Yes.
More or less, Mr. Lincoln dies and the Confederates get a slap on the wrist and they're allowed to have 100 years of apartheid.
100 more years of Jim Crow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, nobody got in trouble for Iran-Contra. And that was the greatest scandal of my lifetime. No one got in trouble.
HW made sure also to talk about pardons when we're
Christmas
freaking
Day
out right
92.
now. Yep.
Pardoned all of them, right?
Casper Weinberger. Yeah, got a good deal.
We get lied into war in Iraq, and Pelosi and Schumer come in and take power in 2006 and say, day one, impeachment's off the table. If you've raised a toddler, there have to be consequences at some point for childish, awful behavior. I'm not talking violence, but I'm talking consequences. But we're not big on consequences when it comes to our right wing in this country. We never have been. We let them get away with everything, and then we pretend that we're the peacemaker. And this is the only pattern that's ever happened in presidential politics in my lifetime. Everyone's all shocked. Folks, look at the last half century. Democrats only get in after Republicans burn the house down. Jimmy Carter got in because of Watergate. Clinton got in because 12 years of trickle down finally collapsed. Barack Obama got in because the worst president in history, George W. Bush, trashed everything.
And the crash, a housing crash, right?
The housing crash, the war, all of it, the global recession, the housing crash, all of it preventable. We warned them about it. Biden gets in because of Donald Trump, who might be worse than Bush. I love the debate about which one's actually a worse president, because Trump killed more Americans, Bush killed more humans. Biden gets in then. We've never seen a Democrat get the White House when things were okay. Al Gore didn't do it.
No, you're right. Not in recent years.
The country has to be on fire.
And most of the time, a point that I would add to your point is it ends up having to be like the orator of a generation, right? It has to be Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or somebody that is so gifted at communications that they can overcome all of the crap that gets slung in their direction by the right-wing hydra.
Well, in fairness, Bill Clinton had Ross Perot to help him in that regard. I mean, Ross Perot helped Bill Clinton a lot.
There's no doubt that did. Yes.
And again, people wonder about the voter turnout. Look, when there's high turnout, Democrats win. And in 2020, everybody was locked in their house for a year. Everybody was watching the news every day. We were all more engaged, and we all had paper ballots sitting on our coffee table. That's why there was more turnout 4 years ago.
Great point. And a lot of more people were able to mail them in.
We were trapped in our houses. We rode away and got our damn ballot sent to us. We had more time and we were more engaged. And we had a media culture that told the truth about Donald Trump rather than a media culture that didn't cover the successes of this Biden administration because they wanted their Trump-sized ratings back.
Of course. And book deals and, just that to me, I've talked a lot about the corruption of our media. I don't think they even know what their job is anymore. It's something between stenography and sensationalism.
Well, there's two groups. There's two groups, right, Cliff? There's journalists and there's media. And journalists have a responsibility to tell the truth, and media has a responsibility to get numbers for the shareholders to see, so they can charge more.
Well, I always go back to network, the movie Network. I mean, you have messed with the primal forces of nature. I mean, that, like, basically his whole speech about there aren't countries. There's just AT&T and GE, and they predicted the future. They saw what news was becoming, that it was going to become this sideshow, sort of of ratings. When back then it was, NBC, you got a license for free from the government, and part of that is you do some public good. Part of the public good that you have to serve is by providing news and not worrying about the ratings. But I really feel like the 24-hour news stuff killed all of that, and it became all about, can we fill 24 hours with news? Of course we can't. So let's create some crap.
Driven news makes people stupid. And again, like, we can, look, every Democrat I know is just in this perpetual finger pointing, circular firing squad. And I get it. You can blame Biden for not dropping out sooner. You can blame Hillary Clinton for not picking Bernie as a running mate in 2016. I mean, we could do it all day, but you blame Merrick Garland, blame Joe Biden. I don't blame Jack Smith. I blame the Supreme Court. I blame the mainstream media culture for allowing a society where people believe that Donald Trump is fighting for them, but Kamala Harris wasn't qualified to be president. And again, we also have to remember, Trump had 4 years to do this. This woman had 100 days, and in 100 days, she got the third highest vote total of any person that's ever run for president in the history of this country, 248 years. She got the third highest vote total after just 3 months of being in the race. And
no, I get mad when I hear people criticizing her.
Vote, which means the majority of Americans did vote against Donald Trump for 3 elections in a row. So this is the 49% pardon, right? The DOJ has this policy made up during Watergate that Congress should impeach a president if they commit crimes, but we're not allowed to take a president out for doing crimes. Not in the Constitution. Rubbish. DOJ has it. You've got this corrupt Supreme Court that gave this immunity ruling that was more or less just for Trump to get his way through this election.
That they've abrogated the Constitution so many times, with their guns are an individual right, and the Shelby County undoing the Voting Rights Act, and obviously overturning Roe, but that one, I mean, is almost comical in its face, that the founders, the people that were overthrowing a king, would ever have thought, let's have the ones who originally had the Articles of the Confederacy, because they didn't, without an executive, because they so feared executive power. The people that moved the capital from New York to DC, or not originally DC, but they were building it down to, I think, first to Annapolis, or Philly first. Annapolis, point being, they moved it because they didn't want the financial capital and the political capital to be in the same city, because they worried about the corruption from those kinds of leaders. Yes, those are the guys who think a president should have immunity. Like, it's so ahistorical that it's ludicrous. And
again, if the DOJ had prosecuted Trump in 2021 or 2022, the delay tactics would not have worked, but they didn't. And so 49% of voters guaranteed that Trump will face zero accountability for his crimes. He's going to go into the office incentivized to commit more. And then CBS shows this poll that Americans oppose any attempt by Trump to bypass Senate confirmation hearings on his appointments by 76%. But sorry, 76%, 49% say no. It's the 49% pardon.
Right.
That's what we're living.
Well, and I'm going to say, just to get it in there, I mean, I know Allison Gill too, and I respect her. And so it's not there's no throwdown. I just disagree with her analysis on it. I just think, first of all, as a communications person, you communicate when a serious, I mean, it'd be like after 9/11, not having somebody come out and communicate to us what was going on. I mean, we did have somebody come out and lie to us about a lot of stuff, but at least he was communicating. I mean, the point is that I'm joking, but in all seriousness, you need to hear from your leaders after something like that happens. And my problem with Merrick Garland is, I get it. If he wanted it to be depoliticized, it didn't have to be him. But somebody should have been regularly getting up in front of a microphone and telling us what was going on. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but looking at Allison's, and I'm friends with Marcy Wheeler too, and she's come up to some conclusions. Actually, Marcy's been a long-time friend, years. But I just, again, over insurrection, over this kind of thing, I don't care what the barriers were. I don't care what norms had to be thrown aside, because this wasn't normal. This should never be normal.
Yeah. I'll say it's 4 years, Cliff. We've never been told who built the gallows. Who
That's right.
erected a gallows with a hangman noose in the middle of DC? Who built it?
Yeah.
We still haven't been told.
Yeah. Who specifically was Mike Pence scared of among those Secret Service agents that he wouldn't get in the car? Who did he think was loyal to Trump there that he might not? I mean, there's a lot we don't know. And what drives me nuts is, again, they made this BS immunity argument over Trump. Fine. I mean, the Supreme Court's the Supreme Court, and obviously we need to add more justices and do all sorts of things to reform it. I always like to point out to people that if you just wanted the Supreme Court to work in general, how the hell do we have a Supreme Court the same size as it was in 67, the last time we added a justice? The country's only gotten 11 times bigger, so I'm sure they can handle all the cases. You know,
There's more courts now. We should be up. It should be 13.
I even think I'd make it 17. I think it should, but 13 I will take happily. But I mean, you know, when we sit there and we look at all that again, Merrick Garland, I have to believe, grabbing Scott Perry's phone comes to mind. Like, a number of the ones that were at the Willard Hotel, who we knew were there, evidence that they were there, members of the House, a couple senators like Hawley and Mike Lee, who we know was texting with Meadows and lying and was part of the fake elector scheme and all that. Like, how they were not prosecuted immediately, I will never understand. And how Trump,
they never do. That's what we're saying. Ford pardoned Nixon. The Confederates walked. No one got in trouble for Iran-Contra. No one got in trouble for lying us into a war that killed 1 million people. I mean, Condoleezza Rice is like, you know, speaking at universities, and it's just allowed. Henry Kissinger got to die in his own bed in his 90s. We let these people get away with it.
I'm still seeing John Yoo on TV, and he found a way to actually take our Constitution and twist it into the thing that we accuse the Japanese for war crimes with in World War II, you know, waterboarding our guys, or we're now saying, no, it's just a bath. It's just, you know, it's cool. It's all right.
And Bush takes all the blame, but the infrastructure that built Bush stays there in power. So what we do in this country is we go after the guys in MAGA hats trying to overthrow democracy the daytime of January 6th. But the well-paid guys in crappy, cheap suits tried to overthrow democracy inside the Capitol the evening of January 6th. We don't even acknowledge it. Yep, Robert Mueller hired people to look into the money laundering, and he never pursued it because we know.
Well, the only guys that ever prosecuted were the Russians. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I thought you were. Go ahead, John.
No, just saying these guys. Look, I mean, it's an oligarchy, and they're going to reveal it more and more. And now that they're going to actually try to make us for 4 years a real Russian-style oligarchy, it's only going to be seen more and more. This is America, and sadly, things tend to have to get worse here before they get better. Just remember something, guys. You have the satisfaction of knowing that, again, y'all were right about everything, and these guys get to have 4 years of being proven they were wrong about everything while they sit around and wait for the billionaires to start caring about them. There is no group that's easier to manipulate, Cliff, than conservative white people.
No, you're right. And the billionaires, the problem with I would say, again, I don't want to get into all the breakdown of every campaign, but how, especially at this point, secretive, unelected billionaires getting together in private rooms to make decisions can't be turned into a message that, I don't care if they mention the word trans, we mentioned Elon Musk. They mention the word immigrant, we mentioned Peter Thiel. Every single thing should be a response. So they are controlled by unelected billionaires like puppets who are passing policies to rob the rest of us, enrich themselves, and in Peter Thiel's weird case, wanting to live forever. Like, we're just
need a political party that calls out the robber barons for that. And
yes, I mean, there's a guy named FDR. They could look back at some of his speeches and maybe learn a couple of things. He was pretty successful, if I remember. Right? I think he won a few times, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and he called them out. But the modern Democratic Party, and there's a lot of people smarter and more progressive than me who'll talk about it, but, you know, they're held hostage to this corporate political culture. I mean, when I hear, Harris Walz campaign spent millions in the last 2 months on private jets, I'm like, okay, I want to know how many of those private jets were for Harris and or Walz, and how many were for high-priced Democratic consultants. the Mark Penns of the world who deliver bad advice for a big paycheck.
I would like to tell you the first place I ever worked, 1996, out of college in New York City, was the headquarters of then Penn and Schoen.
Oh, wow.
Mark Penn, Doug Schoen, and Dick Morris used to show up, all Republicans now, mind you, who were doing Clinton's polling in 96, who all were just the most disgusting. They would parade their various mistresses in the office to brag about it. I mean, if you want gauche, gross Trump culture, they were it. And they just were awful people. So yes, Mark Penn, luckily for me, I'm a low-priced political consultant. So I'm lucky, they may put me in, I get put in steerage.
But you of all people know what I mean by that, Cliff.
I do know exactly what you mean.
Yes. there's this species of parasite that is bleeding Democratic campaigns dry.
You're right. I moved away from DC and did some things differently because I never wanted to be that. I wanted to be a consultant. I wrote ads for Biden in 20. I used to write speeches for Howard Dean. I did all sorts of things, but I did them on my terms, which was I don't want to be one of those insider people in DC who just trying to move up the ladder and hanging out at the right bars. And I didn't want to play that game. I was going to either make it because I was talented or I wasn't going to make it. And thankfully, somebody somewhere made a mistake and thought I had something to say. So I got some opportunities. But
yeah, and God bless you for it. Look, I think Joe Biden did an amazing job of beginning to dismantle Reaganomics. And I'm waiting for the next great Democratic leader to dismantle neoliberalism, because it's just gone on for too long. And I voted for these Democrats, and I'll always vote for the person who will help the most and harm the least.
Me too.
But we need a real opposition party. And having the billionaire evil party and the billionaire party that cares about minorities, kind of. I've never belonged to
billionaires and anti-monopoly.
I've never been
what I would say,
but I do vote for them, and I am rooting for them. And they, for the very fact that the party of billionaires with golden toilets can convince working class people they're on their side, something is not right.
I mean, my God, the golden crapper. It's like Saddam Hussein chic, Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, billionaires are one group that we absolutely have to take on. And to me, again, ever since those University of Chicago business idiots sat there with Reagan and worked out that, no, monopoly is good. It's about efficiency. That's better for the country. And we've watched all these industries. And again, I admit it too. I worked for Bill Clinton. I liked a lot of what he did, but he signed the Telecommunications Act, which was part of what allowed media to go from 18. We had Brian Karam on here who was talking all about it, from 18 different or 20 or whatever, a couple dozen different companies. And that wasn't enough. That was too few, down to 6 that basically control most things. And that's just the media. I mean, think about all these other industries. Think about all the places you can't go, things you can't do, and whatever, because you have to choose between 3 crappy options or fewer, because they've all just taken each other over. If we would take on monopoly, I know they'd spend all their money against us, but if we would invest in some media infrastructure so we get our message out better, if we would take on monopoly and take on billionaires, I think we would wipe the floor with them.
I mean, a couple of years ago, I was offered a deal with CNN and a deal with Current TV at the same time, and I went with Current. Joy Behar convinced me that Al Gore was serious about having a real liberal channel, and
I was a guest on there a bunch, and then I know, then we just 4 years into it, let's just get rid of it. Air America, again, they trusted the wrong. Yeah, they trusted the wrong people with the money at Air America. It doesn't mean it didn't create a farm team of some talented people who now have, shows out there. So you created your own farm team. You were you, because you were an entertainer guy first. So I know we talk politics, but I have to ask you about your background and what got you interested in being an entertainer, and then even going from entertainment to sort of political entertainment.
Well, my dad was a history teacher. It's a couple things. On the politics level, my dad was always into this, and I sucked at sports and had to earn his love somehow. So I got really into history and politics at a young age.
Isn't it all of our stories making our dads love us?
Well, we're trying to. A bigger part of it is the religion aspect. You know this. My mother was a nun for many years. She was a nurse and worked with lepers in Malawi, Africa. My father was a Franciscan brother who taught history to Catholic boys in Brooklyn and wore the Jedi robes. And
Nice.
so growing up, we were the most Catholic family. I mean, extremely. You know, I grew up admiring Jesus the way anybody admires mom's first husband. But
Did you
we
grow
were
up
also
in Brooklyn?
liberal. We were the most Catholic family and the most liberal family, which meant, you know, we were liberal, but we still had sex hang-ups. And as I got older, I began realizing that the kind of Christianity I was raised with wasn't reflected by what I saw on TV. As a kid in the 80s and 90s, seeing these Jerry Falwells and Pat Robertsons.
I say moral majority, post-moral majority, I can only imagine.
Anti-feminism, anti-gay, anti-abortion rights, none of which is backed up by the actual
all the stuff that Jesus talked about all the time, while saying nothing about the rich or you know, good Samaritan type stuff. You know, I mean, you find the guy on the side of the highway, as I understand it, and then you deport him. Is that what it said? Something like that, right?
I mean, and that's a great story, because Jesus goes out of his way to list a holy man who ignores the suffering person. And then Jesus deliberately chooses the most despised foreign minority to be the hero of the story. Like, he's literally being woke in just the casting of this story. And you know, when I was doing stand-up and you know, and beginning my career, every now and then I'd get asked to come on and you know, talk about politics, and I enjoyed it. And when I first moved out to LA to be on America's Funniest Home Videos, I did Bill Maher's show a lot. And Bill Maher would...
I think that's where I first saw you. I think it was Bill Maher's show.
Bill would have me on. When they found out about my parents, I wasn't allowed yet to tell my parents' background. They didn't let me, but Bill had me on debating Jerry Falwell and David Duke and all these right-wing theocratic, you know, fascist types. And I couldn't believe the response I got. And as a political stand-up, when I talked about what the Bible said versus what right-wingers fight for, people went nuts over it. And I saw George Carlin when I was 20, and it changed my life. And honestly,
I wish I had seen him when I was 20. That would have probably changed my life too.
Oh, it was on the Jam in the New York tour, which is his greatest album. And that's the album where he said he stopped being a comedian and became an essayist, jamming in New York. And it's amazing. And you know, I felt just kind of pulled in a different direction. And the more I talked about this stuff, you know, Bob Dylan hasn't really played guitar since 2002. For the last 22 years, Bob's mainly only played piano in his concerts. And they said to him, why are you just playing piano all the time? And he said, if I could find someone who can play it the way I do, I'd hire that person. But I'm the only one who can play it the way I do. If there was a comedian out there talking about what the Bible actually says versus what the American right wing wants us to believe.
Yeah, there's nobody educated on the level you're on that could
I would
also
just do
entertain.
dick jokes all day. Yeah, I'd be sitting here talking about sex nonstop. But so my book is coming out next summer with Simon & Schuster, and it's called The Separation of Church and Hate. And it's all about how to take back the good book from the fascists and the flock fleecing frauds. And
did you look to history? I mean, there were so many, you know, now granted, he was on the wrong side of certain things eventually, but William Jennings Bryan used religion for obviously on economic issues, you know, in a very positive way. Martin Luther King Jr. And I mean, there's such a history that people don't understand. Religion as a progressive space that helped move us forward. People that actually relied on what was actually said in the New Testament. And I did 10 years. I'm a Jew, but I did 10 years at Grace Church School in Greenwich Village.
Grace Church.
I'm sorry? I
know Grace Church. Yeah. I'm from Greenwich Village.
Yeah. My first grade teacher was Mrs. Duchovny, who had a son named David, who's done okay for himself out in Hollywood, by the way. But it was, go ahead. You're making a face.
America is the only country on the planet where our Christianity is completely historically entwined with white supremacy. We're the only country where our Christianity cannot be separated from our history of white supremacy. And America is proof that being a Christian and being a Christ follower are often two completely different things. This country taught me that you can be a Christian and never follow the Nazarene. And so, you know, I don't even know what the word Christian means anymore. A lot of people who worship Jesus and wave him around like a prop, because that's a lot easier than following his inconveniently liberal.
And you could tell me if I'm wrong, because again, as I said, I only brought up the Episcopalian school to say, we had to take certain Bible classes, and I became at least relatively well educated for someone of my background in Christian various in Catholicism and in Episcopalianism and various forms of Protestantism and the rest. But didn't, if I'm remembering correctly, Jesus also talk about people who pray in public being the folks that you shouldn't pray in public, right? That it was wrong.
That would be Matthew 6:5, Cliff.
Thank you. See,
Matthew 6:5, every liberal should memorize it, where Jesus tells you not to trust people who are praying out there in public so they can be seen. He tells you.
Repeating that every day.
And right after that, he says, if you want to pray to your Father who is in secret. He's coming out against public prayer. Now, I'm sure if you're in a church, that's one thing, but generally, I don't go for public prayer. I don't trust people who pray on camera. And when you see these well-intentioned guys of all religions in the street proselytizing, just so you know, it's about leading by example. It's about converting me by your deeds and your kindness that makes me want to be more like whatever club you're in. Jesus specifically warns you. This is where he gives the words to the Our Father, and he instructs his followers to pray these words in private. Matthew 6:5. Don't trust the people who are out there praying.
I memorize the verse. Yeah, because I remember that always. And when these folks, because again, anybody who is outwardly, I'm not saying there are some people that try to quietly pray in public, but the people that outwardly do it in your face are always the frauds. Always.
That's it. Always.
Like with anything else,
The loudest Christians are always the ones who know the least about what Jesus actually says, which is why I had to write a damn book about it. But I do want to say, if we really were a Christian nation, people would vote to help the sick and the poor and let private charities bail out Wall Street. I mean, the America that embraced slavery rejected the commandments of Jesus. We have never been a Christian nation, but there is a true heritage of Christianity in this country. And it has almost always manifested itself in resistance. The true Christianity of America came from opposing slavery, from opposing the ethnic cleansing of the indigenous people, opposing segregation, opposing the exploitation of labor, opposing the xenophobia that's used at the Christian refugees at our southern border, opposing the treatment of women, opposing using Jesus as an excuse to be shitty to gay people. That's where the real Christianity has always manifested itself in American politics, in resisting power, which is what Christianity is supposed to do.
No, I mean, that's exactly right. It's amazing how I saw someone I missed it, but somebody said that Jesus was a radical.
He was.
Yeah, right. And it's always amazing to me how people can grab, a radical hippie who talked about stuff that sounded, certainly socialist, and helping those less fortunate and caring, about them. And they can always, just the way they claim today that John Kennedy was a Republican or Martin Luther King would be a Republican, or they somehow turn Jesus into a Republican.
By the way, they do. MLK Sr. was a Republican. Martin Luther King Sr. was a Republican.
Yes, but that was a different Republican
party. In disgust in 1960 over their racist convention. So that's why you still hear MLK was Republican, and half of these rat bastards don't know it. And then what was the other one?
You're right. Senior was, but he left when the Goldwater forces took over because of the racism. He was there when it was a more moderate party, when you had it was more of the Jacob Javits type party.
Exactly
liberal
right.
Republicans.
So this Jesus character overturns Old Testament law on death penalty, on food purity, on Sabbath observance. He changes the divorce laws of Moses. The only sexual problems Jesus ever has, the only sexual behaviors Jesus ever condemns are adultery and dumping your wife. Trump supporters, nothing about gay people.
Well, then there's no Republican cabinet left if we're going by those standards.
Jesus broke the law by teaching women, by talking with women, by letting women be part of his ministry, by letting women touch him to be healed. He broke the law all over the place, but they don't teach us as kids why he was a radical figure, because he is still a threat to power structures. He was non-violent.
Him, as opposed to a symbol, right? Just like the American flag becomes a symbol, the cross becomes a symbol. They can turn it into anything they want it to be, as opposed to what it really represented.
Yeah. But Jesus was
So-
anti-wealth, anti-death penalty, anti-public prayer, never anti-gay, never mentioned abortion. The Bible is not against abortion. Judaism is not against abortion.
Judaism is
Abortions are legal and
pro-abortion
free
for
in-
women's health if they need it. Like
Yes.
it actually, it comes out in favor of if a woman for her emotional or physical health.
Well, if a woman's life is in danger, the Torah requires abortion. So it's a question of
correct.
religious
Yep.
freedom. But again, this is how they did it, Cliff. They in the 70s, the right-wing Christians, they were all still racist. Falwell was a segregationist. He opened whites-only schools and supported apartheid. And the big
Yep.
battle they were fighting in the 70s was that Jimmy Carter's IRS is trying to take tax-exempt status away from universities that practice racial segregation. That was it. Reagan gave speeches in 1980 where he talked about Jimmy Carter's IRS and didn't mention abortion. In the 78 midterms, they talked about abortion a little bit. But Jerry Falwell never mentioned abortion in a sermon until 5 years after Roe v. Wade. And once they realized in the early 80s what a gimmick this was, Ronald Reagan signed the most liberal abortion law in California's history.
He was pro-choice, right? So was George
Flipped
H.W.
overnight.
Bush.
George H.W. Bush supported abortion rights until the day Reagan asked him to be his
You know what
running
his
mate.
nickname was, by the way, when he
What?
was in the House? His nickname was Rubbers because he was so pro-birth control. George
Yeah.
H.W. Bush. They would
Well,
refer
but
to
they
him
all
as
were, right?
Rubbers.
Mitt Romney supported abortion rights, and Donald Trump supported abortion rights.
Yep.
And these godless humps who pretend they found Jesus when all they want is power, when Jesus is never against abortion. The Bible makes it really clear. Life begins with first breath. In Exodus 21, God asserts that a woman's life has more value than a fetus in his eye, and a fetus is property. It's a man's property, but it's property. In Numbers 5, if a man suspects his wife is pregnant by another man, there is this test where she drinks this bitter water and it causes miscarriage. It's abortion. The one-time abortion's in the Bible and it's a how-to. Don't worry, pro-lifers. Again, the woman has no choice. God kills every fetus on earth with a flood one day.
I was
Look
going to
at
say,
Passover. God is the least pro-life character in the book. But as of the early 1980s, they began this 2-generation plan of convincing Christians to throw out everything Jesus ever talked about to criminalize abortion, which Jesus never talked about.
Right.
So the very
They need the
core of
uniting
Christianity
issue.
is built on fraud and something that's not in the Bible.
Right, you're pointing it out, and which is that what had united them was segregation, and they're getting to a point where obviously that they needed a new issue after fighting with the IRS over taxes, and they discovered this issue of abortion, and that they could. I still think there's hardwired into it the blood libel against Jews in the Middle Ages, and it was a perfect thing to sell Christians on. And if I'm correct, you again know this stuff better than me, but I think the Baptist Convention, the 70s, came out in favor of abortion rights. It was only the Catholic Church was the only one.
Both before and after Roe. Before and
Right.
after Roe, the Southern Baptists came out and supported abortion rights.
So it was all about, and sadly, this is one of the places it started because one of the leaders and founders of the National Right to Life Committee, what was it, Dr. John Wilkie, is from the West Side, a very Catholic part of Cincinnati here, and he was one of the founders who, he came up with all that stuff when he helped found the National Right to Life Committee about, a woman's body just shuts it down if it's rape and all this
Well,
garbage.
the Catholics were always against it since the Depression, when women were trying to get abortions in the Great Depression because they couldn't afford it. And that's what really radicalized the American Catholic Church against this issue. But when Roe v. Wade was decided, most Christians thought that's a Catholic thing. The most controversial part of Roe was the complete lack of controversy. No one cared at the time.
Right.
Because abortion had not replaced the teachings of Jesus in defining what Christianity is. These people aren't Christ followers. So you should be polite to them and be respectful to them. But again, here's what you ask them all the time. This is my go-to line. Why should I believe Donald Trump supporters care about the actual teachings of Jesus? Ask them to cite one thing Christ talks about in the book that these MAGA fucks fight for. And you know what you're going to get? Abortion, because they haven't read the book. Number 2 is going to be immigration.
It's the gays.
Well, no, number 2 is immigration, when in reality, the only law about immigration in the whole Bible or borders is the commandment to welcome the stranger. Jesus says in Matthew 25, individuals and nations will be judged by how they welcome the stranger. He says you will burn in hell if you don't welcome the stranger. These people don't follow Jesus. They have a Messiah from Queens who's a racist who wears too much makeup they like. And the third most popular thing I get is, Trump moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And I have to explain, sorry, Jesus never mentions the United States or where our embassy should be in the year 33 AD. Cliff, they are not Jesus followers.
I know, I'm like,
don't be afraid of these people.
They
haven't read their own book.
Right. I just
and they're counting on the fact that you haven't read it.
Right. I'm like, stop with all the rapture stuff, everybody. Exactly. Again, I know why Mike Huckabee is being sent over there. That's a little wink and a nod to the far Christian right, who, of course, all Jews must be back in Israel so the rapture can come. And then I'm going to go, as I've said before, if John gets raptured, I'm going to go take all of his good stuff, like his big screen TV, his car, whatever else he's got, because I'm left down here just to hang. You know, some of us like me.
It's worse than that. It's totally worse than that. Because this rapture theology nonsense is a great way to just avoid and blow off Jesus's commandments, which are to care for the poor, care for the sick, welcome the stranger, care for those in prison. He says this to individuals and nations. And all that liberal do-gooderism is a drag. So we want to have an apocalyptic end of the world party where my crew is already invited behind the velvet rope for the after party. Mike Huckabee believes this dominionist crap. And again, the book of Revelation is not Jesus. It's not John the Apostle. It's some guy named John tripping his face off in a cave and writing down Doors lyrics. That's Revelation. and
haven't we all done that before? I mean, honestly.
But
sorry.
Huckabee believes in the tribulations. He raises money off of this, which is to say that when the tribulations come, 1/3 of the Jews will die violently, and the rest will have the choice to forcibly be converted to Christianity. The man who raises money off of that is our new ambassador to Israel, a man who despises Jews and Muslims equally.
Right. He says there's no such thing as Palestinians. He once, when Newsmax was more of a newsletter and whatever, sent out a biblical cure for cancer. And I couldn't believe, I didn't understand enough at that point in time, that we're now going back to 2008, 12, about how awful our media was. Somebody who would send out a scam like that should never, ever be allowed to even be considered for president. But nope, Huckabee sailed right past that to now the $20,000 lecterns his daughter gets that I assume turn into a DeLorean, take you somewhere in the past or something. I don't know what it takes, what a lectern has to do for you to pay 20 grand for it. But that's a hell of a lectern. You know what I'm saying?
Look, if you lie to white people enough about the people they hate, they'll reward you forever. That's Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I mean, she's literally in the Mueller report. We know she lied to the American people and the entire White House press room. And no one cares.
I know. It's amazing. Well, I bring up the line often about LBJ's line, right? As long as you can convince the lowest white man that he's higher than the highest black man, you can win his vote. Yeah. And they've now expanded that to, Muslim, woman, to various groups. So
that's all these idiots, right? They hate the same people I hate. So let me give a billionaire a donation. That's the level of stupid we're dealing with. And the billionaires really care about you, Cletus. They'll be there to help your life any day now.
Cletus. They will be right there, with your deep fried foods, definitely some good grain, and you can have a party. So listen, out of interest, before you ditch me here,
before I ditch you,
well, I'm sure you've got places to go, John. You're an important man. Come on.
I think I'm helping with science homework and writing my show tonight, but sure.
I know the helping with science homework part. So when were you doing some of this, bringing religion into some of your stand-up? Were you sort of integrating that into your comedy, into what you did early on, or was that something you waited until you got more involved in politics?
I tried to bring it in. It's kind of tough to bring it in. You hear Christian comedy and right away you imagine these clean-cut white people who don't say bad words and it's not actually funny. And so
like Book of Mormon sort of characters. Yeah.
But Jesus taught me the joy of calling out pious hypocrites. It was really more when I got into doing more radio and television. And I'm not a pundit, but I get invited on these shows to come and crack jokes. And I was doing a mornings on CNN every day, and my appearances on Fox and MSNBC, and guest hosting the Stephanie Miller Show years ago, and doing a lot more radio, and then going to Sirius XM. And gradually over the years, I found out there's a big audience for this kind of talk. There's a lot of people out there, even atheists. You don't have to believe people. Religion can suck, but people will always have a spiritual yearning. And there's people who are raised in a religion, and they're over the hypocrisy and lies of old dirty men in funny hats, but they believe in a creator, or they think Jesus was cool, or they like Santa Claus, whatever the freaking thing is. But I discovered that there really was an appetite for this, and that people cared a lot, because I never hear it. There's theologians who talk about this stuff, and I read their books, and they're brilliant, and 12 people buy them. But there's a lot of people who don't like the hypocrisy and evil of modern American Christianity, but they also don't feel comfortable attacking religion. And I'm here to say it's not a binary. Jesus called out pious, conservative religious hypocrites. Jesus's most ferocious criticisms are at the conservative religious hypocrites of his day. It's pretty much what got himself killed, and there's a whole lot of sacred diss tracks in the Gospels.
No, I mean, that's it, right? And I think that the message you were saying there is important, whether you're atheist, whether you're agnostic, whatever. I mean, I come from a lapsed, we're Jewish Presbyterian combo of where we don't go to church or temple or anything, but I still consider myself.
But you do feel guilty about it.
I feel guilty as hell, of course, but I still consider myself spiritual, and I do believe that there's a connection between all of us, and there's something, something more important. And I can't define it and say what it is. So I'm not saying I sit there and believe this story or that story, but as parables, what I read in there is so important, and have chosen to read almost every major religion's, I think, various works, so I understand it, because again, there are so many parables. There's so much you can learn there about how we should be to each other. Yes, and you don't have to be religious to do that. You don't have to be a historian to read history books. So that's what it always informed me, and that's why I love it. We're hearing you talk about these things, because again, I just think it's important for folks to know the truth, and this is one of those areas where the right-wing megaphone and the gaslighting and the moral majority, which was just again corporate corrupt Christians about putting money away and in their pockets and they're go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with everything you say. Yes, I'm cheering. You're in the wave.
So I mean, that's what they did. They brought, essentially Reagan brought together the corporate and right and the religious right, foreign policy right too. But hey, everybody get together. You religious guys, you'll get rich. You corporate guys can hide behind their piety and act like you're doing it for the right reasons. And
yes, sir.
Let's see if we can't send the U.S. on a different trajectory than all the rest of the Western countries that until then we had been on. Economically, we were even more progressive than a few of the Western European countries. But that's where everyone's getting health care, everyone's getting paid family and medical leave, and we're like, no, radical individualism. Oh, no, man, my taxes are too high. Cut them. And they don't remember that Eisenhower had a 91% top tax rate when we used to actually go to war, because we actually went to war then. We didn't just send the poorest among us and the people that had to join to pay for college and that kind of thing.
That's right.
Different time, different place. So what do you have coming up that people should know about?
Well, Cliff, thank you. We've pretty much wrapped up the Sexy Liberal Tour, except we're going to do one big date in DC, inauguration weekend on the 18th. If you're in DC and you want to come to a party of the most passionate, excited people, I think that's going to be a pay-per-view as well. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. And then next year, I'll probably be on the road with a new solo show to reflect the book, but the book is called Separation of Church and Hate from Simon & Schuster's Avid Reader Press, and it's coming out in August, and you can order that from your local independent bookstore. Have it ready by
awesome.
By August.
Will you be doing book readings or stand-up or both when you go on
I'm going to be. I want to be on the road all year next year. I'm on Sirius XM. I anchor the primetime programming on Sirius XM Progress, so that's every night 9 to midnight East Coast, 6 to 9 Pacific. If you don't have Sirius XM, our show is available for free as a podcast of like the highlights of our show every day. And you can get that at the John Fugelsang podcast, wherever you all pick up your pods. And then hopefully coming to do stand up in a town near you guys next year.
Well, I'm going to make you come to Cincinnati. We've got some excellent chili here.
I'd love
We've
to.
got, we got some good ice cream, and the Reds and Bengals lose. So there's a
I was
lot of
just in
good
Ohio
reasons.
2 weeks ago. I went and played in Lake Erie. It was great to be back for fall.
Oh, were you really?
I was playing Lake
Oh,
Erie
that's
College.
awesome.
Great, yeah.
All right. Well, I'll have to check in more with your schedule and see when you're coming around here. I'll see if I can get to DC. That'd be a lot of fun.
Come see us in DC.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I had a blast in Minneapolis. You guys, I felt like you're like, all right, Cliff, you get to be a comedian, try it out, and
a lot
it
of
was
fun.
a lot of fun. Just
It was
yeah,
great
it was a
having you.
blast.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, it was great being had. So we all won. Awesome. I just I feel like I want to keep asking you stuff forever, but you have a life, and there are places that I need to go to.
So you're going to come on my show next Thursday, the 12th at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern time. So ask me your questions, and I'm going to save all the ones I've saved up for you and pelt
That's
you.
perfect. I will.
I'm going to make
sure
you prop me off a ledge next Thursday.
That there you go. Perfect. I'm going to make sure that I let all the great and fine folks here know. I'll remind them I'm coming on the show, and hopefully that they will listen in, and we can chat.
Thank you for having me.
Huddle. Hey, John. Seriously, I meant everything I said. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and you have a lot to teach, and you do it in a way that's fun. So thank you for being here.
I want to thank you for all you do and for being so good and entertaining at how you do it.
You're a good man. Thanks, pal.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Take care.
Peace.
Yep. Peace. All right, guys. That was fun. John has what you could call the charisma. He is everything I said there. What a terrific guy. And, he's had so much success. He does not have to be because there are others I know that aren't. But he is the real deal. And of course, Joe Destiny knows Graders is great ice cream. You are correct. It is the best. We'll have more people on here. I love when I have folks that really are animated. I'm going to try to have more. I mean, not to say I've had a lot of great guests, but the folks that really animated, really into it, where there's good chemistry. And we're definitely going to do some more of that. So do folks have this has been a nice long one today. I can't go over 2 hours. They will not let me rebroadcast. And as you guys know, I rebroadcast a couple of times because it ends up that folks don't always catch it the first time. So this will be on again. We'll replay at 9 o'clock tonight, and I believe it'll be 9 o'clock tomorrow morning also. So you can catch if you got here late, because I saw a few people said, "Oh my God, I got here late," and I tried to promote as early as I could that John was going to be on because I know everybody loves listening to him. He's a brilliant dude. But we'll get him back on again. And we'll have some other fun people. I've got some fun plans. People I've talked to. I don't want to say it until it's specific what dates they're coming on, but famous people from rock bands you've heard of, famous people from business you've heard of, a couple others. It'll be really interesting. And thank you, Mahutz and Cliff, for not banning me. Okay, Joe, I don't know why you would have been banned, but maybe I missed something. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. For this, again, I hate doing this stuff, but I must. Soon I'm going to start pushing merch too. Don't buy Christmas presents yet. I'm coming up with some cool merch you will want to buy for those you care about. But in the meantime, if you can, any super stickers, super chats, new members. I don't think we got any new members this show. Come on, guys. Come on. Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to be a new member? Come on. Don't make me walk out of here alone. Don't make me do it. Who's going to do it? Coffee mugs, Joe Jesse. We're going to get that. We're going to order a bunch of things. Let's write it down here, right? Get merch going. I have some already, but I want to see if it's good. It's stuff you guys like, and come up with some really creative, funny stuff. Oh my gosh, Michael McAndrews. Wow. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough times. You are a prince and a living embodiment of a god. And no, I mean, I don't want to get silly and crazy, but that is incredibly, incredibly generous. And you are fantastic. and I won't forget this. And please become a member because you deserve all sorts of things for that. I don't think that I need to charge you a membership fee even. Wow. I'm still speechless. That is one of the most generous things that I've ever gotten from non-family members. They've been kind to me. Thank you so much. Seriously. Thank you all. God, I love doing this. And if I can just get everything to work out properly, and I know I've been saying this forever, but I finally am down to the 2 admins I'm talking to, and we may have each of them do some stuff to take some things off my hands. And we can that way have the YouTube memberships and Patreon memberships have a whole ton of extra crap, extra content. I just need to get sort of this stuff all worked out. And then maybe I'll do this like 4 days a week, because once I have like the stuff that's holding me down that I have to do when I'm, I'd rather not do, that doesn't let me be creative and have fun and write and, talk to you guys. Once I can move that out of the way, hopefully then, maybe we'll add a 4th day, because God, I love doing this. Joni, thanks so much for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. Wow. Carl Jacobson, member for 2 months. Thank you so much. And I think I missed some things along the way. Let's see. Did I? Yeah, Quantum Cricket. And then I mentioned your $5 gift. Thank you, Celeste, $9.99. Bridget Sweeney. I'm not sure I saw that. Bridget, thank you so much. Well, you were telling, no, I put that up. You were thanking John and telling him about his book. Yeah, I can't wait for his book either. Dude has too much talent. Shoya became a YouTube member. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Does anybody have a quick question? Quick anything. I think this one, because John, that's what I mean about John. Somebody with John's background, guys, I agree, Quantum Cricket. Ohio Voices will be here. Seriously, I mean, I'm going to speak out on Ohio. I'm going to speak out on national stuff, but we need voices in these parts of the country. Cincinnati is a very liberal city, yes, and my county is very liberal, but still, you go that far outside of here, and it gets different. Spacco is always fantastic. Thank you for promoting my show on Nicole Sandler, and you got 2 subscriptions. Well, and you're also a form of deity. Thank you, Mr. Spacco. You're awesome. I think that's it, guys. Honestly, we'll have another one tomorrow. I did have a guest lined up who I think is not going to be able to do it, but I think I've got a really good idea for somebody. Hopefully it'll be as exciting as today. So you guys keep on keeping on, rock and roll. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. We have to, Karen Klein gets in before the buzzer. Thank you so much for being a new member. You are fantastic. And obviously you guys can join and become new members whenever, and give, even if once we shut this down, any super chats, super stickers, I would love it. They're much appreciated. And Michael McAndrews, again, thank you. You are a prince among men. Folks, I think we are done. And as I say, as the sun sets slowly in the west, I bid you a fond farewell. See you again soon.